All right. So the first thing that you can do to start building trust and therefore adoption in your systems is that any data request that's processed that you've got, either informal or formal, should be a conversation. So if someone is asking for anything, you want to not just have it be, I'm going to submit an email asking for a report, and then I'm wait, 2 weeks and get something back. There needs to be some sort of method of having whoever is the report developer interact with that report requester. And a good way to do that is to place importance on the purpose of the report. So like, why are you doing this? What do what's the purpose of this information? Because the requester may have interesting assumptions and information about why that would be useful based on why they want it. And the person developing the report probably knows of data and information that may help with their question they asked that is not, that they didn't ask for first because they didn't even know existed. So understanding the why can help develop that conversation and interaction, and it should be like rewarded and incentivized to have that interaction with the requester by the developer. The other thing, the next step is to rethink your approach to training. So most of the time, if you're implementing a reporting tool, there is significant training on the tool. Now, reporting tools have gotten such that they are easier and easier to use, and the real training that you need to do is in the data and not the tool, because the data systems are getting more and more complicated and the tools are getting more and more simple. So if you want to think about that, that sort of ratio of people versus technology, that really you want to have a similar thing, to put more energy into training in the data that you have than training in the tool. As well as, as we talk about the knowledge base, to have that, good access and information to that. And it's not simple to do, because a lot of these data systems that you have don't come with very, nice, easy to read or even easy to access information on the data, and particularly how that might map to your particular business glossary and reporting definitions. The other thing to do is to take that training to the users, don't be entirely passive about the training. And we'll talk about that in the case study for Central Piedmont and what they did on that. So this picture represents a baseball score card, which I frankly don't know how to use very well. But if you it's a very simple grid, the names of the players on one side and the innings along the top. It seems like it's simple, but if you don't understand the data, if you don't understand, what a E7K, it's like very hard to use this. So the tool is simple, but the data itself is very hard. As here we are in the playoff, it's an interesting time to think about that. All right, number 3, the next thing to do is to start documenting your own reports. All right, so if you are a report developer, and we have half the team here, half the people on the calls from IT, and 20% from IR, so there's a good chance many of you are developing reports. You want to build trust on the back end. You have to be able to if someone says where do these numbers come from, you have to have a pretty simple answer, or you should not even have to answer it, because you're going to deliver the documentation somehow with the report. So if you can find or create a template for documenting the report yourself, that's great. Document both for a functional person and for a technical person. So if someone else is going to try to create a similar report or understand what you've done, it's good to have the technical details, but also you want to have it functionally. So, a good example of this is if, a large percentage of the schools in the country use Banner. The crazy thing about Banner is that all of their table names and column names are basically unreadable. It's like when you talk about, oh, that's the SGBSTDN _ SPR _ code or whatever. It's like, what the heck does that mean? So you want to use things like your business glossary terms for stuff like, this is my, active primary academic program, and then you say technically that's found in the Sagastian table with blah, 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 blah. So you want to document both of those things as you're putting in your report, building up your report. And be very specific in defining those terms, like, because the specificity matters. You can have a 10, 20, 50% swing in the quantifiable numbers based on certain assumptions. Is this the first day of the term? Is it the census extract? Is it the last day? Is it the current day? Or, you know, what population are we including? All those types of things matter. And then put this documentation somewhere that the users can find it. So and by users, I mean both consumers of the report and someone else that might want to, you know, pick up and run with this after you win the lottery, you know, and leave, or just that there's, you know, a broader set of people reporting on your campus. And you also want to drive people towards self-service reporting. So the more information that you can have documented as you as someone who knows what they're doing, the better. So in order to do this last bullet, like, you want to create an institutional reporting knowledge base. This is something that we sort of early on decided is an important part, which is one of the reasons that we created the cookbook, which falls into the realm of an institutional reporting knowledge base. There's also a bunch of like workflow and business process and things in the cookbook, but you don't have to use the cookbook. You can start with something where you're doing this in, you know, your SharePoint, or you're doing it on a website, or you're using Google Drive or wherever. There's lots of places you could put this. You need to sort of come up with some templates and figuring out what you want to do in that knowledge base. And then one of the things that it can feel like a barrier to say, I'm going to create an institutional reporting knowledge base, to think I have to have everything in the world in that knowledge base. You don't. You just need to populate it sort of one question at a time. So as you're documenting your first report, go put it in there. Maybe the only report in that entire knowledge base to start off. But that's just, you know, one step. You know, the journey of 1,000 miles starts with one step, they say, or whatever. So that's the concept here, is just find a repository that we agree upon, that you put that in. And you have to be careful too, because I don't recommend this repository being embedded in a reporting tool for a couple reasons. One is tools come and go, but also there is, you know, even if you're pretty set on a single like operational reporting tool at your institution, there's other reporting that's happening. You know, people are doing statistical analysis and SAS, as well as operational reporting in Former, as well as you know, ad hoc reporting, and there's certain things like frankly, a transcript is a report of a certain kind. So you want to be able to have this information encapsulate more than just one tool, because if you look across your whole institution, there's lots of ways reporting is happening. So if you can think of an enterprise way to bring this information together to get shared knowledge, particularly at the functional level across all reporting that's happening, not just, you know, embedded in one single reporting tool. So what kind of stuff should you put in that knowledge base? You know, again, this doesn't have to happen all on day one, but an inventory of your data systems is a good thing to have, information about what all the data systems are, a listing and documentation of reports and extracts. And again, you can do that as they're created. You don't have to look back and do it. A data dictionary where you're documenting your business glossary terms like active academic program, and then also including things like your technical data model. So you're bringing information in from your data systems and also tying that then to your business glossary. So how do I pull active academic program out of, you know, my banner or colleague or PeopleSoft? Process documentation is useful. So what is the process for submitting a data request? Training materials on your tools and the data and all that kind of stuff, your data systems as well. Contact information for your stakeholders and your stewards. So, you know, do I know how to, who I'm supposed to ask if I have a question on financial data or financial reports. And then templates or forms for data requests and report specifications and data definitions and things of that nature. So that's the good stuff to put in the knowledge base. And again, it doesn't matter where you want to put this to start. You can work off of Google Docs to start, or some other sort of portal platform. As you'll see, the cookbook we built the cookbook to be a repository for this information and to manage its sort of creation as part of the process. But more importantly, you need something, right? Regardless of the tool. One thing I found interesting about, you know, from an adoption and use standpoint of like a knowledge base like that is, I think Wikipedia is an interesting example. So if you roll out a knowledge base on your campus for reporting and you say, I want everyone to use it, you know, everyone go in and please start entering in all of your reports and all of your requests and all of your data definitions and all this kind of stuff. you're going to have a pretty good revolt on your hands of people who are like, this is a lot of work. Why are you making me do this? Right? So most of us, when we think about Wikipedia, which in essence is a knowledge base for definitions of, and information about all things in the world, most of our experience and the reason that most people on this planet use Wikipedia is because when we have a question and we go to it, it gives us an answer. Not because we love, writing definitions or putting in information in Wikipedia. Now, there is a handful of people who do love that, right? So this chart represents, starting in 2002, and then we sort of lines up here in 2003, the quantity of articles in Wikipedia. And then this chart represents the number of editors for people who are doing 5+ edits, 25+ edits, or 100+ edits. And I say this blue line, your 100+ edit groups, those are your people who just love writing definitions, like what you might be data stewards or very active, engage people in the process. These are your sort of maybe your super users, and then these are your casual editors, right? Most of the world is actually none of these. Most people just interact with the content. But what's interesting is that we have a spike in casual use of the Wikipedia starting in 2005 and then really growing in 2006. And if you see the level of number of articles, you really needed to get a tipping point and the number of articles before those casual users really started using that, right? And there was a growth amongst the sort of super users, but they were sort of chugging along doing things here, and then the casual users really caught on. And it's the same thing if you talk about governance and your knowledge bases, that you want most of the people's first experience with that to be, oh, I got the documentation along with my report, or I was searching for some information and I found it, or a data definition and I got it, rather than I'm being asked to put stuff in. So as you think about implementing governance as well as your reporting solutions, like that's another thing to think about is how do you make their experience with this more about getting information first, as opposed to being asked to put stuff in. So I know this is a process around adoption of a presentation around adoption of reporting, but it's also about adoption of governance. And this is really focused towards the adoption of governance, that you don't want to force people to interact with governance as a first step to be work, right? You want it to be to make their lives easier. You find your core people who will help set that up by doing work, but then you go from there. All right, so that's about building out your knowledge base and what's in it. And we do a whole session about building out content, and you can go look at that. All right, the next step here is about establishing and empowering data stewards. So we're going to move a little quicker through here. Establishing data stewards is very important. You want to train those data stewards and what their job's supposed to be and what they're supposed to do. Give them enough time and support so that they can be helpful. And then make the stewards accessible when needed. So I'm not going to rehash this, but you really want to think of those data stewards like you think of your student advisors. Like they are advisors to people building and consuming reports on your campus. And how do you train them and facilitate their ability and the ways to interact? And think of it as it's not like an asynchronous activity. Like they need to be available as people need them, as people are building things. And that's where you're going to get the most success out of that, and that will create that trust and use of the reporting tools, that they have access to the stewards and support they need. When you think about training people, we said, hey, you should spend 75%, and that, or at least a majority of your time on the people side of implementing reporting solutions. The other thing that our team of data governance consultants tells me is that you're also going to get your most return if you're out training people is to train the data stewards as much as possible, right? So if you spend a lot of time training the stewards, you can get sort of a train the trainer value, or at least have those people ready to support the rest of the people appropriately. So if focus your energy on training people, focus most of your time on training people, focus most of that people time on your stewards, and that's going to give you the most return in the world of adoption